Hi. Hi,
There.
Joyce.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm Tatiana Larson. I'm in the transition to teaching program at Fort Hays University.
Mhm.
And we have an assignment where a group of us in the same area are supposed to interview a mentor. I guess at some point in the past you volunteered that you could help
Okay.
us with something like this.
Yeah.
Um, it's gonna be 40 minutes long, and each one of us will have some questions about advice, lesson planning, um, tools or resources to get us started teaching in our area this fall successfully.
Okay.
Um, so we have Connor and me, and there's two more participants. So. Hopefully they'll join us shortly. Oops, I need to admit. Okay. All right. So, hi. So I think we have everybody, Connor, Ashley, Hugo, and Joyce, our mentor. So tell us a little bit about you, Joyce. So from what I can tell, that your specialty is music, arts, speech, and theater, and you are working for Kansas State Department of Education,
Uh-huh.
or what?
Yeah, yeah. I taught for a number of years, but mostly I taught art and a little bit of regular classroom. I had a little bit of that, but mostly I taught art. But then uh, I went ahead and got my national board certification too. It's another step in licensure. You get this license, and then sometimes people want to get a national board certification, but it's not required. But I did, and that was kind of fun. It was a challenge, but it was fun. And then this offer came to me to work for the State Department of Education and leave the classroom. And now I work with teachers mostly to help them become better teachers, or if they have questions about something, things like that, I'm there for them. There's a lot of things I do, but that's kind of summarizes it pretty well. And now I don't just work with art, I work with music teachers, dance, theater, and media arts teachers as well. So that kind of gives you an idea, I think.
Yes. All right. So I did the introduction for a little bit, but I want to give an opportunity to my classmates to ask you some questions. So, um, who wants to go first?
Can you guys hear me? Is it working?
Mhm.
Okay. I'll start off with asking you a question. I just put, what is the best way to balance being a teacher and also taking TTT classes at the same time? As far as I know, I have to take at least one class during the semester when I'm teaching. I don't know if I have to take more than that. I think it's 3 credit hours. But I just didn't know if you had any advice when it comes to balancing both of those, especially when it's going to be my first year teaching. So,
Yeah, I think that it would be good to do most as much of your take good advantage of your plan time at school. When you're in the class, when you're teaching, you
yeah.
probably will be given some plan time and take good advantage of that to do any planning for your actual teaching. So that hopefully will lighten up your evenings and weekends so that you can work on your classwork.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty common sense. I mean, you just gotta keep your focus where you are. Try not to think of both things at the same time. Remove yourself from your class when you're focused on teaching, and remove yourself from teaching when you're focused on your class. If it's not easy to do, but yeah, you should be able to do it. What area are you going to go into, or are you
I'm actually
teaching?
going to be teaching art also. I'm going
Okay,
to teach 7th through 12th.
okay,
So,
okay, good. Yeah.
you want me to keep going or are we going to kind of go around?
Let's take turns, maybe. let's go around. So maybe on my screen I see Hugo, but I don't.
Yeah,
Ashley
I
can
got a
go as well.
question.
Mhm.
How do you manage your classroom without coming across super strict as a super strict teacher? And is there a method that works for you?
Yeah, consistency.
Hmm.
Always be consistent with what you say, what a policy you set for one student needs to be set for all the students. So it's
Hmm.
fair and it's consistent. And don't give in, just stay consistent. Don't give in. But you can do that in a humorous way. You can kind of be humorous with them. Don't become their friend. Don't become their buddy, but become their um, facilitator, their guide. You're there to help them get through the years that they have to go through or the days of school that they have to go through. You're there to guide them and to help them through. You're not there to be their buddy or their friend because that can really screw things up.
Okay, thank you. This is also my first year teaching, so
Okay.
I have all those questions in my mind, like those
Yeah.
type of scenarios, and it's just something I don't know, and it's
I think,
helpful to hear it from somebody
yeah,
that has
I think
experience.
that can be probably one of the bigger challenges is to know how to draw that line between friendship and guide
Hmm.
um, to help coach them. That's what I call it, coaching
Hmm.
them through those months and years of school. Um, but it is what it is. The kids got to realize, hey, these are the rules. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I break it for you, I break it for everybody. So you can kind of do it in a humorous way like that,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
so, or just say, well, I can't do that. Don't try to don't take the blame on yourself. Say, well, if I do that, if I give in to you, I'm just going to get myself in trouble. Things
Hmm.
like that help, I think.
Hmm.
They don't want you to get in trouble usually.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I'm eating. So like I'm on my lunch break, so I didn't want you
Okay.
guys to see me eating.
Uh-huh.
um this is also my first year. I'm gonna be teaching art as well, 7 through 12.
Mhm.
And I guess I want to know a little bit more about what you experienced as a teacher in the classroom. So what was like the toughest situation you had to face as a teacher and what did you do
Okay.
about
Well, the nice thing, you might say it's a nice thing about teaching is every day is different because the kids are always different every day. But well, I don't know what the most challenging thing was for me. Uh, I had everything from little kids, like kindergartners, all the way up through high school at different times. And the high school kids just seemed like easier in a way because they know more what to do. They're kind of more mature and sometimes, and you know, they like to joke with you too sometimes. So it's kind of nice. But the little ones, they just love you. They want to hug you. Those little ones do. So every group is different, but every day is different. Um, just go prepared. Just be organized, really organized. That's a big help as a teacher, is to be organized and be prepared. Kids will catch on right away. If you're not organized and prepared, they'll know that. And they're not dumb. Even the little ones aren't. So,
Okay. I'll go next with my question. Leading up to the being organized, how do you create your lesson plans? How much in advance, and how are you, how much do you change your lesson plans based on seeing the dynamic of the classes, especially when you go to a new school and you don't know the community in the neighborhood? How do you prepare lesson plans that are impactful for that specific area and those students.
Well, now you're all teaching art, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And are
Yes.
you all at the high school level or
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
middle and high school.
Oh,
middle and
I
high?
and actually I'm gonna do K-8 at a magnet school.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, magnet school is a little bit different again too, but those are kids that usually are really, really want to be there and they really want to learn. The other kids, you just have to get them engaged. If they come to school and they just don't want to be there or they just don't want to do it, you just got to kind of come up with ways to get them engaged or come up with something creative for them to do. Sometimes it's good to let some of those kids that are kind of anxious and talking maybe some kid wants to talk all the time. Sometimes it's good to just give them a job to do. Help me with this kind of thing. You can help pass out these things or something. And you got to keep them occupied and keep them busy and engaged. And that's a good way to deal with classroom discipline and with your planning. Now, how far in advance do you plan? I would be starting now if I were you. Use your summer days if you have some time yet this summer to do some planning. And you can do a pretty general planning. Say you want to cover painting the first 3 weeks or something, and then move into drawing or something, or the opposite, the other way around, maybe drawing then painting. So you get that overarching idea of what you want to cover that semester or that school year, what topics, and then get in more into it. So for example, say you want to start at the first 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever with drawing. So you want to start looking up some artists, and what is drawing? Drawing can be an art in itself and things like that. So you're going to want to share with them some artists, a little bit about the art history of drawing. And you're going to want to have a pretty good idea of what media you're going to want them to use. If you want them to use charcoal the first week and graphite the next or whatever, or pastel for something one, you want to know your medium. So get that, you want to be somewhat organized so things flow through. And if your district requires you to have lesson plans that they look at, they want to see, like the principal sometimes wants to see your lesson plans, they will probably have an outline for you to follow at that school. So,
Sorry,
but
I'm
you
gonna
want
wait
to
up.
go ahead. Okay, I was just going
What?
to say, you want to have some objectives. You want to know what you've written these lesson plans, I'm sure, in some of your classes probably already. You want to know what your objectives are. What's your ultimate goal? And then how are you going to measure that?
Yeah, one of our assignments for this class is to write a lesson plan. Do you have any favorite lesson plan or any suggestion how to create a successful one?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of my area of strength is curriculum development. Yeah, I look at I do look at the standards. So the state art standards, visual art standards, and I also then write objectives. So I do write those, and then I figure out how I'm going to assess or measure those objectives. Is it going to be a work of art in the end, or is it going to be an exhibit that you want the student to somehow exhibit their work, or maybe you want to have them do interviews with one another, or write reflections about their work, whatever it is that you're going to use as an assessment. You kind of want to know that up front too, and align that with your objectives. Okay. And then any activities you want to plan in there comes next. Just figure out how you're going to get them to achieve those objectives. Are you going to have them paint? Or are you going to have them use mixed media? Whatever, you know, you're going to have them do.
Okay. Somebody else can ask some
So
questions.
this question is kind of adding to what you talked about.
Mhm.
So what would be the best way or the best method to engage a student or students who display or have anxiety conditions? Because so I will continue. Somebody brought it up in I think it was in this class or another class that I'm taking. Um, I wrote on one of the assignments was like how will we assess our students, and then I wrote something about like asking questions or like you said at the end of the class or at the end of the assignment, they will end up with an art piece or a graphic
Yeah.
design piece because I'll be teaching graphic design, and I was thinking
Okay.
about having class critiques after that, and then somebody mentioned that some kids have anxiety conditions and they don't like to be put on the spot, and
Uh-huh.
by creating that environment, uh, we'll I'll have them on the spot, and then um,
Okay. Yeah, I
how
follow
would
you.
you deal with that?
Yeah, I follow what you're saying here.
Yeah.
So, that's what we call in education, we call that differentiation. Just a fancy
Hmm.
word for offering different ways for kids to do what you're asking them to do. So if you
Hmm.
have some kids that get nervous or they freeze up when they get in front of the crowd, you might just have them, you might do a couple of different things. Let the kids ask each other the questions and jot down the answers for each other. So if you and
Hmm.
I were two students, I would ask you questions and then I would jot down your answers on my piece of paper. And the paper would have the questions on it that I have to ask you. And then you
Hmm.
would have a piece of paper with some questions on it, maybe the same, maybe different. You
Hmm.
could make them different questions for the two kids. And then you would ask me those questions and jot down my answers. So that's an option. That gets them less in front of the group and more just maybe with a buddy or a friend in class. Or
Hmm.
you could just have them work by themselves and just write a short reflection that addresses something or just answer the questions. Have them write out the answers to their questions that you have for them. So you could also do all three of those and give the individual students the choice. I mean, it's giving kids a little bit more freedom.
Hmm.
Sometimes that's not always easy your first year of teaching, but it is an option to give the students, but you have to be real clear and firm on the limit of their choices. Is it just two choices or three choices? Maybe just two. You can either do it by yourself or you can do it with a buddy. Okay.
Hmm.
So you don't want to give them too much stuff and you don't want to give in if they want to do something different. That you just say, nope, these are the two choices. Just be like that with them. They'll listen to you. They'll respect you a lot if you're direct and you don't give in. They'll respect you a lot for that. So,
Okay. Thank you.
mhm.
My question kind of goes along with what we already talked about a little bit, but at least at my high school, a lot of students, when they would get to art class, they would think it would just be a fun class to mess around in and kind of just have fun. So I didn't know if there was one particular way that you manage the classroom the best, or if there's something you do right when your students all get to class to kind of get them all settled and stuff. So yeah, I just
Well, I've done different things in the elementary level. I actually put up what I called the stop and go light. When the green was on, they were allowed to talk while they worked. But if I had the red light on, then everybody had to work silently, or they had to listen to me if the red light was on, something like that. But with the older kids, if they come in and they think they're just going to fool around, you need to have a structure. Be very structured with what they're going to do and have those expectations clear with them. And then again, don't give in. If they just want to fool around, if they try to fool around anyhow, you can check them. You know, in other words, what I mean by that is say, hey, buddy, you know, hey, John, remember this is work time, and give them that chance. Okay, so you said it once. If you have to repeat it again and again, I never let it go more than 3 times. Sometimes 2 times is enough. Then you have to have an ultimatum for them. And some kind of, I mean, it could be something as simple as working by themselves, move them to another spot in the room. That's not threatening them. That's not being accusatory. Just nicely say, hey, John, why don't you come and sit over here and work next to my desk here? You know, just be respectful toward them. You know, they're human beings just like us, but they try you. That's what they want to do. They want to try you. So just be firm, consistent, things like that.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit with Hugo, with students that might have, you know, anxiety or even learning disorders or autism or, you know, something like that, that's not obvious or something to a teacher. What kind of accommodations have you had to make for students?
Okay.
And I guess what is too far? Like when are the accommodations becoming too accommodating?
Okay. First of all, if you have a student who is has an extreme case of or extreme challenge, there'll probably be a para with that student. So if not, if they're able to be on their own without a para, then I've had kids who were tactile sensitive, sensitive to touch. And so instead of having them actually work with clay, I gave them something different to work with. Maybe they could build their sculpture with paper or something else that wasn't as, they just didn't like that feel of that clay. So they could build it with paper or something, or, you know, tag board. That's kind of a firm type of paper. You should know ahead of time, though, if you have kids that are going to have certain challenges. So you can prepare ahead for that.
I heard you mention that you use red light and green light to indicate when you're available and when the kids could talk or when you're talking. What kind of other equipment or supplies, technology have you used in a classroom that you found really useful?
Okay, I know this works. They use this in high school too. Sometimes it's a clap, a certain pattern of a clap. If the kids are talking and you need their attention, for example, you could clap like, and then they clap back. So that just, you may have heard that already. And also sometimes people will flick the lights. Some teachers will flick the lights when they need their attention, things like that. Yeah, that's kind of, but kids should know ahead of time that if you're going to allow them to talk while they work, they should do it quietly. And, you know, there's probably going to be some policies in some of the schools. I don't know if all of your schools will have a cell phone policy where they are not to have it in the classroom. Some schools have a policy like that. And if they don't have a policy, you might be able to set your own policy for the art room. If it's not needed, please turn it off or something. You could have them. I don't know. I mean, most schools have some kind of policy nowadays for cell phones so that they're not on them when they're supposed to be working. Because you know, if there's not some kind of restriction, then they'll try to use that cell phone, you know, to play a game on it or whatever.
Have you used technology in your classroom? Like, have you integrated digital photography or video or any other kind of venue or media into regular art classroom? And has it been successful, or does it take away from the artistic process, in your opinion?
No, it depends upon what project you're doing. I mean, I don't know how much Photoshop is used anymore. It might be beyond my age or my time, but if it's used, that's a form of technology. You know, they take a photograph and then alter it. Also, stop motion animation that I've used quite successfully. Also, things like virtual portfolios, that's technology. Also, presentations like Google Slides. That's I know a lot of teachers who use that for students to do a presentation on the process of their project. So that project was for them to do their project, and as they did their project, they were supposed to take photographs showing the process they went through in creating that work of art. And then they were supposed to take those photos and create a presentation using Google Slides, or is the same thing as PowerPoint, really.
Mhm.
But yeah, so things like that are using technology, and they're pretty fun. Kids like to use technology a lot. And that cool thing about documenting the process, that's pretty cool activity.
Yeah, that's
And
really
again,
cool.
you want to make sure that you're very clear with the steps that they need to go through. You know, whether you have a handout, piece of paper with those steps or whatever it is, just being very clear.
Hmm. Great.
My classes are probably going to be around like 30 to 35 minutes because I have so many classes throughout the day. Is there any benefits to having like a short lecture or like a long lecture one day in the week and then the other days are just for working, or what do you think is the best?
Well, research shows that we only retain about 20% of listening to someone talk to us, like in a lecture. But and about 80% when we can actually apply it and start doing something with it. We retain 80% usually. So I would suggest to keep all your presentations, or if you want to call them lectures, short, and hit the main points and show those main points up on the screen at the same time, because they're not only hearing it, but they're also going to see it. And that's two ways to retain it. So you enhance the chances of them remembering.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's also good to not give the kids all the answers. Questioning is a real effective strategy. And those questions can even be up on the screen also as you are asking them. So we're going to do this project. If I mix these two things, what do you think is going to happen? That's asking the kids, what do you think is going to happen before I tell them everything? It's things like that.
Hmm.
Do you do a lot of group-based activities in your class?
Well, yes, usually, if it's a learning process, I often group kids, but um, we're analyzing some works of art, and maybe we're going to group them to learn more about them or categorize them or something. I'll often have groups of three, sometimes four. But if you go over 4, kids don't have anything to do.
Mm.
Some of them just will sit and observe or whatever. But 3 is a nice number. And it's also good to have, you can always also appoint an assignment for each of those 3 kids in that group. So one's a recorder, one's the, I don't know, the presenter. They're going to be the one that presents it back. And the third one can be the, I don't know. So you can have little assignments for each one as well. Keeps them all busy that way.
Yeah.
So.
So we have about 9 minutes left. I just wanted to give an opportunity to anyone else ask some questions. I have questions, but I would like to give some room to other classmates as well.
All my other questions have been asked, so.
So how will you build an effective communication beyond class?
Okay, to effective communication is I don't want to say you should repeat yourself, but I think you should if you give an assignment, for example, you're communicating the assignment to them. If they just, you could have them repeat it back to you, maybe as they're leaving the classroom. Each one, what was your assignment? Okay, what was your assignment, kind of thing, as they go out the door. That's one way. I think you should have it, again, in 2 ways, verbally and visually. Communicate it both ways. It could be anything, whatever you're communicating, whether you're communicating an assignment or you're communicating some content information. It's often good to keep it pretty simple, clear, and show it or present it 2 ways, verbally and visually.
Mhm. Thank you. I would like to ask you, what are some, if you were just about to start teaching, some people have experience, some not. What if you went back in time, what are some most important tips and what are some good resources for new teachers and for their lesson plans and all around everything that they need to be successful? What are some good tips and resources?
Keeping your lesson plans fairly simple, I think, is helpful. You get too detailed, you kind of lose the time to present anyhow. So keeping them fairly simple. Also, always have your objectives and how you're going to measure it. Because it's like, what's the use of teaching something if you don't want it to be retained or you don't want the kids to actually remember it? And so they should show back to you how they've achieved it. Sometimes it's simply in their project, in their painting. If they've completed the painting, that's the form of assessment right there. And then you evaluate the painting to see how well they were able to create the texture in the piece or communicate the message that they're trying to communicate and so on. Sometimes critiquing, is good. But again, if you have some students that are afraid to speak up or don't want to, and it's the same ones that always answer, that critique may have to change its style and do it in like some of the ways I've already mentioned. Let me think what else here. Being very organized. I mentioned that already. Yeah, I think as you go through the year too, you're going to become more comfortable with the kids. But start out, really firm and consistent. You don't want to, usually they say you can't be too hard at the beginning of the school year. I don't know if that's true or not, but you don't want to be easy at the beginning because they'll walk all over you. They'll figure you out real quick. The students will.
Are
That
there any?
goes to my my next question, I'm sorry. Do strict expectations and procedures create a pleasant, positive, and challenging learning space?
Yeah. Yes,
Because
that's good.
yeah,
Yeah, a challenging is good. Kids want to be challenged. They want to be
mhm,
able to think. That's why I go back to those questions. Don't give
mhm,
them all the answers. Ask them. Let them try to figure it out. Think of yourself. What helps you? Why do you want to learn? And usually you do want to learn. That's why you're in college and stuff. That's why you're moving forward in your career. Kids are the same way. If they can be challenged and you can ask them questions, which is a way to challenge them, you know, that they like that. They're going to like that better. They might be afraid at first, like you're getting upset with them or something, but no, just keep your voice tone calm
mhm,
and just say, think about it. You're coming to me asking me this, how to do this. If you have this color and this color and you do this, what do you think you're going to get? And they're going to say, I don't know. And you're going to say, try it and find out. So it's like, don't give them the answers. Just, get them to learn how to think on their own. Today with technology and phones and everything, answers are so quick and easy. Kids don't always have to think so much, but you want them to learn how to think. You never know when they're going to be in a situation where they're going to have to think on their feet. So you want to prepare them for that because that's your responsibility, is to help prepare these kids for the future.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got about 3 minutes.
I would like to
I would like to
go back.
go ahead, Ashley.
I guess I kind of want to go back to a bit of communication. So, I mean, obviously, cell phones are a big thing, and teacher contact information is usually readily available to students and parents. Where is the line to be like, okay, parent of this student, I am on a family vacation this weekend with my family. I will address this issue when I return to school on Monday. Or where's the line? I don't want to be contacted by parents 24 hours a day.
No, you can draw your own line. You have that right. And, do it reasonably, of course. Maybe no calls. If you allow them to call you outside of school or contact you outside of school, set a time limit. Maybe not after 8 o'clock, not after 7, whatever. Maybe you're an early riser and you can, between these hours or whatever. And then you may not want anyone contacting you on weekends. Well, then just let them know up front, not on weekends. And you might post that somewhere so all kids know that. And you might even inform the parents if you think you might get contacted from the parents ever. You might need to make that clear too. I think the school might, whoever you're teaching with there, check with them also. But yeah, you should be able to set your limits on when you're available and when you're not, especially if you're taking that class or a class or anything at the same time. You want to have your own time. You got to have your time too. And just set your availability accordingly and in a reasonable manner.
Okay. I think we have 1 minute left, so I think it would be a good time to wrap it up so we don't get disconnected abruptly, since we have the 40-minute free Zoom video session. So I would really like to thank you, Joyce, for finding time and answering our questions, and we wish that we could have the knowledge you have, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. We'll have to fight and do our best.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll all do fine. And don't hesitate to contact me, email me or anything. If you have any more questions or you get in a situation where you just want to run it by me or something. So
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
you're welcome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.